Good afternoon. It's the Carolina Boy coming to you live. Welcome back to the podcast, the Carolina Boy Sportscast. I want to get into a little bit of discussion tonight. The week one of the 2021-2022 college football season. I'm talking a little bit about the SEC side. Starting off with Alabama. It's been a crazy year, due to COVID. I know a lot of teams didn't really get to practice as much. So it was good to see, the stadium's packed, back to at least starting to get back to where it needed to be. Alabama versus Miami, which is the number one team in the nation. As I took off and played against Miami, I knew that game was going to be an easy game. I mean, everybody thought that Miami was going to pull an upset and a shocker, But, I mean, let's face it, it's Alabama. Number one team in the nation. You got the best offense, the best defense, Even though they got a lot of shoes to fill, a lot of talented players are out because they went to the draft and went to the pros. Bryce Young, his debut, came off hot. He threw for 4 touchdowns. He was like, I think 28 or 30 completions. They had a total of 501 yards total for 354 passing yards. The rushing yards was like 147. It's like 6.5 yards per play. It was just, every time Alabama had the ball, it was a score, whether it be a turnover from the defense. Alabama always scored no matter what. It was either running the ball or passing the ball. Yeah, I believe like 28 first downs, the third downs, they were 10 to 16. 77 total plays, only punted twice. So Alabama was good, They never missed a beat. I know they got a lot of talent they got to refill because Devontae Smith left, Waddle left, Mac Jones left, Najee Harris left. So there's a lot of new faces in there, but they proved that they can play. And just poor Miami. Miami couldn't get it off at all. First quarter, second quarter, they were turning over the balls left and right. It was just punting the ball. They only had 266 yards total, about 179 yards passing, and only 87 rushing yards, which per play was like 4.7. They had like 18 first downs, which they really couldn't get anything going. And the third down, they were only 6 to 14. Couldn't really get off a third down. They only probably went for it once on fourth down and got it. They only had like 62 total plays and like 5 points, and they fumbled the ball. So it was a crazy game. There's a lot of people that knew it was going to be a blowout. I seriously thought Miami was not going to score. Because it's the first game. Alabama went and inserted their dominance to show that they're good, So, it was, like I said, it was a bad way to start for the ACC schools, So, the first loss, I think it was Miami lost. So, yeah. Then you switch over to the primetime game, the biggest game of the night. Georgia versus Clemson, number 5. Georgia taking on number 3 Clemson. Clemson's big dogs. They've always been big, especially this past couple of seasons. They have always been the top 5, top 10, or at least top 10 or top 5, It was a struggle. It was an offensive struggle. Defense. It was a defensive game, to be honest with you. The offense for both sides couldn't really get it going. Couldn't make any plays when they had it. They can run the ball a little bit, but it's, not getting to where, it's a shootout. You had JT Daniels versus DJ Ugalele. Sorry if I messed it up. I'm just going to stick with DJ because I can pronounce it better. DJ's got a lot of shoes to fill. With Trevor Lawrence leaving and going to the draft, wide receiver core, Justin Ross was back, from the surgery. So because he couldn't play all last year, I believe, from the surgery, spinal surgery that he had. You know, it was basically a back and forth defensive game. You know, Georgia was crushing Clemson. You know, it's like the offensive line for Clemson could not. I know they had a lot of key players out, and you know they were trying to hard to replace them. You know, because they left. Some of them left, went to pros. But it was like DJ, dude. He was stuck like a deer in the headlights. You know, he couldn't get anything going. Really, you know, he had a couple of good plays. You know, a couple of good passes to how do we pronounce it? Ross and Ajee. I can't. You know, sorry if I'm saying it wrong. Or Agaya. You know, so it was a tough game. You know, a lot of people predicted, you know, it was going to be at least a showdown or a, you know, back and forth game. It was all until like second quarter. You know, I think it was like 3rd and 8 per se for Clemson. You know, DJ. You know, he misread the play or just overshot his receiver. And, you know, and it got picked off for a pick 6 by the veteran safety, Chris Smith. You know, it was like he was setting up that play from the beginning. I guess Chris, you know, he had his eyes set on what DJ was about to do, and, you know, he made a perfect play. And that was a turning point for the for the Dogs and for, you know, basically put Clemson back on their tails. You know, like, you know, we got to do something. I mean, don't get me wrong, Clemson's defense was good. You know, they stopped the passing plays. Georgia had a couple of good plays to, you know, their receivers, you know, I mean, they still got, a lot of new faces since, you know, Pickens is out, you know, from that injury, you know, and Washington's out from a foot injury for a couple of weeks. So it was a hard blow for some of the Georgia players to be out. You know, and missing, you know, Burton, you know, he really couldn't get anything going. Kyrus Jackson, for some reason, I don't know why, everybody was a little confused. They had him on the special teams, so punt returns. You know, but it seems like he really couldn't do nothing. He'd probably fair catch it most of the game or just probably run it 2 or 3 yards and then get hit, you know. I can understand, you know, it's the beginning of the game. Everybody's wanting to – nobody really played, you know, contact, you know, it's always been practice, you know, nothing full contact or real hard hitting, you know, so, you know, hopefully we get the, you know, ones back that we need to actually start getting better with offense, because I know they got to work. I'm not going to lie, Georgia's got to work on their offensive games. So it was really interesting to watch it. You know, JT Daniels, I'm going to start off with him because that's my team, you know. He was 22 for 30 completions, about 135 yards. Only one interception. It was a misread, I guess. It was basically, I mean, it was a hard-fought battle. You know, Georgia had 256 total yards, like passing yards 135. With rushing yards like 121. The rushing game with Zeus was amazing. He was a beast. You know, he's tough. You know, he was hard to break down, but he had a point to prove as well. Because it was been a long time, you know, he was done because he had an ACL injury, you know. So he was kind of out for a while, and, you know, it took him a hard, long-fought battle just to get back and being able to play right. So, I mean, I know he worked his way up to being a beast, knowing he's got a lot of talent behind him, like James Cook. You know, they ran like 4.2 yards per play, you know, compared to Clemson's like 180 yards, like 178 passing yards. And Georgia had only held Clemson, and this is probably the first time in a long time since Clemson they were low-digit scores, you know. They only held Clemson to 2 yards rushing. 2. And that's kind of hard because Clemson, you know, they're up there with Alabama. You know, they're always up at the top, you know, if not 1, 2, they're probably, or not top 2, you know, probably at least to about 5, you know, they're up there because they can play, you know. Ever since they lost, like, Trevor Lawrence and Travis Etienne and all them, you know, they have to rebuild, you know. I mean, they got a lot of good talent, running backs, you know. So it was a good game, you know. Starting off, like, Georgia's running backs, you know, Zamar White, he had 13 carries, 704 yards. But he averaged about 5.7 carries. No touchdowns. There was not a single offensive touchdown. It was only a defensive touchdown, Kendall Milton, he carried, 6 carries for 27 yards, about 4.5 average. James Cook, beast. Only had 5 carries, 19 yards for 3.8 average. So it was a back and forth. They would stop us. We'd stop them. Like I said, that pick 6 with 74 yards by Smith was a turning point in the game. Even though Georgia only really scored like 7 points because they kicked the field goal because they got it all the way down to the end zone, but just seemed like they couldn't get it in. I had a feeling, that it was going to be a good game. Or a no-biter at least, but it seems like Clemson was just gassed out. They really couldn't get anything going, and especially, like I said, with DJ, he was like a deer in the headlights. He was freezing. Either he was nervous, or he was just not much, let's say, throwing the game, but he was just couldn't get his mind right to what he wanted to do because he had open receivers. There was a couple of times that he could actually run the ball and couldn't, or he could have ran it for a first down and decided to run out of bounds. So it was like, you sit there and see you got enough time. Why the hell can you not go for it? Or why would you just run it out of bounds if you had enough space to get the first down, Same way with Georgia. Georgia could have done that too, but there was a lot of miscommunication plays. We get it. It's the first game back. But this game right here was basically a life or death situation for the college football playoffs. This was the hopes. If Georgia would have lost to Clemson, it would have kind of killed their dreams because Georgia would have had to fight their whole schedule and win the SEC championship just to be able to go to the playoffs. Clemson's got an easy schedule the rest, as long as they can get past North Carolina, which lost. So it was pretty much a bad weekend for the ACC. They can get past North Carolina, they can get past South Carolina, Florida State, and all the teams that they need, and go to the ACC championship and win out. They'll probably be in the talk for the playoffs. Who knows? It depends on how they play throughout the season. Either they're going to have to switch up a quarterback, or they just got to get the composure to play, have the will. Like I said, maybe it was not Justin Ross's night, even though he's got cleared to play that game, but I don't think he's really been contact with sport, during practice. But DJ went for 19 to 37 completion attempts, 178 yards. Dixon, he only had 1 carry with 10 yards. Shipley, 4 carries and 7 yards. And DJ only he probably ran once, but he was basically negative 22 yards for like 14 carries. And receiving wise, Nagata, I guess you can say it right. Hopefully I said it right. Sorry if I said it wrong again. He only had 6 receivings, 110 yards, 18.3 carries average. Justin Ross only had 4 receiving receptions for 26 yards. And Galloway, they were trying to make, Galloway, he's been out for a little bit, but they're trying to make Galloway, be the best, or talk that he's the best. He might be the best, but it's all talk until he's on the field, I can't say I can go out and be like, oh, well, JT Daniels is going to just destroy y'all, he's going to walk all over y'all, and he, turn around and not do it. But JT Daniels is a good quarterback, so is DJ. I can say DJ's a good quarterback, but it just seems like his mind wasn't there, or he wasn't, he was feeling too much pressure, no doubt about it. N'Kobe Dean got to him real good. Big D, Jordan Davis, the tank is what I'm going to call him, because he's built like a tank. He's the biggest player on the team. You look at him, you're looking at a giant, He was back on the backfield, and it was a homecoming game for him, so since he's from Charlotte. So I know it was a lot of pressure on the defense, and the offense, to stop Georgia and for Georgia to try to stop Clemson's defense. They had a lot of blitz. I think JT Daniels probably only got sacked once or twice, but DJ, he was on his back the whole entire time. I think they recorded like 7 tackles on DJ. Like, he just couldn't do nothing. He tried to pass the ball or he tried to run the ball and was getting hit every single time. So, it really showed the dominance of the SEC, Everybody's turned out, all the fans, every time Georgia goes somewhere, they always travel good. Same for Clemson. Clemson, their fans travel, but this is the ACC versus the SEC, and the SEC showed their dominance regardless whole weekend, like Alabama destroying Miami, can't really say Georgia destroyed Clemson, even though it was like 10-3. So, it was pretty much a laughing joke start weekend for the ACC. Miami and Notre Dame, that game kicked off last night, and I watched it. It was a back and forth game. It was on up to like the last quarter. They tied it 38-38. It would have been a miracle if Florida State would have actually beat Notre Dame, because Notre Dame was like a ranked number 9 and Florida State's not. So, but they missed a field goal attempt, and then Notre Dame got it back and ran it down to at least field goal range and kicked the field goal to win it. That kind of, it was a shocker, but like I said, it was a hell of a game. So I'm interested in seeing, the team resting up and try to get back there, especially Clemson. I'm a dog fan, but, Clemson's all right. I watch them if, we're off, like bye week or something like that. Maybe they can bounce back throughout the rest of the season, since it's pretty easy unless they get beat by Carolina, which if they do, it wouldn't surprise me. If they don't, hopefully we'll end up playing again, and then we can show the real throwdown battle. Then, if not, it'll probably be my prediction. I'm going to say it. I know it's too early to call it, but I'm going to say it'll either be if Georgia can beat Alabama in the SEC championship, or go all the way and lose in the SEC championship and still be able to get in. I believe it would probably end up being Georgia versus Alabama, maybe for the playoffs. It depends on who, if Oklahoma goes, or if Ohio State goes, or if Notre Dame goes. Or who knows, there might be another show versus Georgia versus Clemson. Let's see, it wasn't the only first time that JT Daniels and DJ faced each other, because they faced each other back in California when they were in high school together, and JT Daniels beat them. So it was really like a flashback for DJ, facing Daniels. It was composure, physicality, they were chopping the wood, the dogs come in packs, and, when they come at you, like, LSU, that game, I actually thought LSU was going to do something, but, they lost, who's that player? I think it's UCLA, yeah. Yeah, they lost to UCLA. It was a good game on up until they started losing. I figured LSU would have came back, but it was like 27-38. UCLA, that school was a joke, or it used to be. They used to be not really good, I guess you can say, but LSU got killed. I ain't gonna lie. Maybe they'll probably bounce back. Who knows? They might be in the talk of playoffs. But as of right now, it's looking like, I know it's beginning. Number 1, Alabama. Number 2, Georgia. Georgia took the number 2 spot. I think it's number 2. And number 3, Ohio State or Oklahoma. And then it goes on from there. And Clemson's like at number 7. So, I'm going to do a little bit more previews and updates on it, as we get going through the season late this weekend. Georgia's got UAB, so hopefully we'll be able to prepare and actually get right. Hopefully we'll have a couple of the guys back that are not injured, or that are injured. Hopefully they'll be off for injury and being able to play, or at least rest and train a little bit to get back out on the field. Because we all miss Bert. Blaylock, you know, he tore his ACL 2 times. You know, he's trying to get comfortable to get back to his speed or to put enough pressure down on that knee. So hopefully he'll come back. You know, Jermaine Burton, a beast. Hopefully we can get Washington back real soon, and we all pray we get Pickens back and Gilbert. You know, Gilbert's been out. He transferred from LSU, personal issues. So hopefully we can get him back. And again, like I said, I'm sorry if I pronounced some names wrong. You know, if you want to help me a little bit, you can comment. As I'll get going, I'll try to pronounce it better a little bit. So hopefully I'll be back, and we'll be back for week 2 of the SEC version side. I'll try to have my little co-host talking about the ACC, which I doubt he will because he's a Clemson fan, so he's just kind of butthurt right now. Just kidding. I mean, like I said, it's a good way to start off the season. I mean, Georgia really started off the New Year's beating Cincinnati. You know, that was last football season, so it was kind of a good game. You know, but I believe if all goes well and Georgia starts to get on all cylinders and all calibers with running backs, defense, throwing the ball, you know, doing deep threats, you know, air attacks, I believe Georgia can go all the way. As long as we can handle the rest of the SEC that we need to handle for the East, like Florida, Alabama, Florida, Carolina, Missouri, Vanderbilt, Tennessee. Georgia will be back in the SEC. You know, we'll have to face Alabama unless something mysteriously happens to Alabama where Alabama starts losing every game, which I highly doubt it because they're good. And, I mean, they got a tough schedule, but, you know, it's just like an easy schedule with Alabama because they always win. So Georgia can go out, win the rest of the season. Like I said before, we'll be back to the playoffs, hopefully. It's a long time coming since 2018 or 2017 when we had Jake Fromm, Nick Chubbs, and all them. Hopefully we can make it back. Go to the Natty, you know. I'm going to try and be more proactive and go to the games and actually broadcast it. And live. I'll have my co-host hopefully talk, or at least kind of interview it a little bit. Like I said, this is, you know, the first episode, first week. Hopefully we can get going, and I'll see y'all week 2. This is the Carolina Boys Sportscast. Have a good night.